Happiness is the sailor that can sail with any wind or can row if needed. It's being in the middle of this 360 degrees of potential outcomes and not caring which way things land. Self-sufficiency is the key to not needing 100 variables to fall your way. Is the key to you being incredibly valuable to your community. And we are back with another ep on the Daily Vedantic. And today's reflection is on the secret to happiness. What is the secret to happiness? Secret to happiness is not caring either way. What do I mean by this? That the secret to happiness is, in any situation in life, not caring either way. Well, I heard that definition once, and my wife and I say it to each other all the time. Getting to a place, even if we feel like we're in a place where, and I know the feeling of really caring that X or Y happens. I really want this thing to happen in this way. And through growth, through progress, through awareness, we begin to realize we really have so little control over what happens. Kind of like Mark Antony speaking in Julius Caesar, where he gives a eulogy for Caesar and then says, "Mischief is now afoot, and take whatever course thou wilt." Mischief, thou art afoot, and take whatever course thou wilt. I wasn't going to quote it directly because I have some tiny allergy to speaking actual Shakespearean English, but it's a hell of a quote. He lays down facts on what happened with Caesar and his murder in front of the entirety of Rome, or at least everyone in the square during this scene. And he just says, here are the facts and take whatever course thou wilt. Completely detached from what happens. Deeply hurt by the loss of a great friend, but just saying, here are the facts, let's see what happens. In life, if you can cultivate that ability to put in an effort and then not needing a certain thing to happen, that is profound action. If you are selflessly acting, unselfishly, let's say unselfishly acting, this philosophy will distinguish between selfish, unselfish, and selfless activity. But that'll be for another episode. If you are unselfishly acting, let's say you're doing something for the greater community around you. If you can detach from needing it to go a certain way, even for the community, even unselfishly, then it unlocks an immense amount of capacity within you for that action. Clarity, objectivity. You are able to operate just far more clearly because you're not attached to a certain outcome happening. And this seems ironic in the world we live in. We think happiness is making a certain thing happen. Out of 365 degrees of potential outcomes, zeroing in on that 1 degree that you need to happen, and you'll only be happy if that thing happens, and making that happen. That is not happiness. Happiness is the sailor that can sail with any wind or can row if needed. It's being in the middle of this 360 degrees of potential outcomes and not caring which way things land. How do you cultivate that equanimity in the midst of all kinds of different outcomes that could take place? Whether it's life, relationships, work, your children, class you're in. How do you get to that place of equanimity? Not caring either way. Well, if happiness is not caring either way, this is just a James phrase. This is not in the philosophy. It's just something that my wife and I say quite often. Getting to that place of not caring either way is through the cultivation of something that is very Vedantic, age-old, timeless, this ancient ideal of self-sufficiency, cultivating self-sufficiency. Not needing 1, 2, 3, 10,000 outcomes to happen to feel full. to feel satisfied, not needing and wishing that this person would do that for you, something you cannot control. And yet we so often lock our sights on that needs to happen. And they need to do that for me to be happy. Self-sufficiency is one of the most important ideals within this philosophy. It's up there right under discernment. Self-sufficiency is the key to not needing 100 variables to fall your way. Is the key to you being incredibly valuable to your community. We all know the friend that's so codependent, that's so needy. The friend in the group that is just always needing something, needing many things from the group, always needing from the world, always coming in with complaints. That's the extreme of someone that is extremely self-insufficient. And we all know that character, and we can barely stand that character. But the community member that's on the other end of the spectrum, that is strong, wise, clear thinking, self-sufficient, that is generous because they feel every day they're coming from a place of security instead of insecurity, of knowing that they have things to offer, not wondering. That person on the other end of the spectrum, instead of being needy, they're everybody's favorite person in the community. There is nothing wrong with leaning on our friends, leaning on family, leaning on our community. Very few of us in a generation are self-sufficient. But that doesn't mean we should get rid of the ideal. And how do we cultivate self-sufficiency within ourselves? It's the 3 daily practices of Vedanta. Question everything. Don't take anything for granted. And study and reflect every day. Ideally, before the sun comes up. As I mentioned on the podcast before, Swami will often say, nothing matters outside of what you do from 4 to 6 a.m. And I always feel like I should mention for those that are in the working realm here in the West, where there are not schedules that allow for naps in the afternoon, for rests, after lunch, then wake up at 5. And it is a game-changing practice to start the day cultivating our clarity, our wisdom, our self-sufficiency. Ideally, with the links in the show notes, have the links to the resources that we as students of Swami Parthasarathi all study, listen to, read. They're in the show notes, and it's insane how 6 months in, your self-sufficiency is just developing on its own. You're just watching yourself get stronger and stronger. It's like trusting a trainer in a gym. And it's oddly pleasurable. It ends up becoming that grounding wire to start your day. That study and reflection before the sun comes up becomes your favorite part of the day, not just the morning. If you've ever had to wake up early for a flight, you're up at 4 or 5, you know that stillness. Walk down to your kitchen, maybe make a coffee. You know that near perfect stillness at 5 a.m. That is the time to bathe our intellects, as Thoreau said. That practice, along with questioning everything, not going along with the herd, not going along with the majority, not going along with the conventions just because everybody does it. The second practice of not taking anything for granted. Trial or triumph, good or bad, something happens in your life. And you find a way to not take it for granted, to be grateful for it. That's the second daily practice. And thirdly, is to study and reflect every day. Those 3 are the only things we need to do to develop self-sufficiency. And what does self-sufficiency lead to? The ability to not care either way. To do our part, play our role, and get out. That is today's reflection on the daily Vedantic. And that is the secret to happiness. We'll see you next time.